and welcome to ProWritingAid 101 for business writers. I'm Micah McGuire, ProWritingAid's B2B Marketing Manager, and today I am joined by Tom Wilde, our Head of Client Solutions. It is great to have you all here today. Great to see you all here, and I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Today's format is going to be just a little bit different than our usual 101s, just because we are now taking this down to a 45-minute format. So we're going to try to cover all of the same ground we usually cover, just get it done for you guys in a shorter amount of time. So today's agenda is going to look a little bit like this. We are going to start by briefly visiting the web editor. Then we're going to pop over to the Chrome extension to check out the RealTime Checker, the Goals tool, the Summary report, the Readability report, the Sticky Sentences report, and the Style report. Then, if we've got some extra time, we're going to do some of our favorite tools for business writers. This includes some things like our snippets tool, our style guide, all of that great stuff. But ultimately, we do want to make sure that we have time for you guys to do Q&A in this 45 minutes. So we're going to be reserving about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session regardless to make sure you guys have time to ask questions. Also, feel free to ask those questions anytime during the walkthrough. We can always kind of address things on the fly as well. So just pop any questions you might have during the walkthrough in that Q&A box. If we're not able to get through them in the walkthrough itself, we'll make sure to get through them in the Q&A at the end of the session. And basically, we will just see how our time goes today. I believe after last month's speed run that I ran for October, I think we should be in great shape. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, Tom, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Micah. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you with us today, this evening, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are. So Micah's given a kind of rundown of what we're going to go through. Let's dive straight in. What I want to just do before we get started is just kind of revisit, what we're looking for ProWritingAid, why we're using ProWritingAid, and why business writing benefits so much from a tool like ProWritingAid. And really, it comes down to, it's like the second pair of digital eyes. It's like the editor on your shoulder. So having ProWritingAid by your side, it's like a security blanket. It's looking for how you can make improvements. When it comes to business writing, it's very easy to get it wrong. I'm sure you've all got examples of the ideas about the things that cause the most frustration in the documents that you read. Typically, it's long sentences, it's complicated, unnecessarily complicated vocabulary. It's obviously grammar and spelling mistakes, the things that really stand out. What ProWritingAid does is allow you to really, it takes those things away from you, because that's what it's looking for. It's building the readability of your documents. That gives you more time to focus on the structure, the really important stuff. How are you actually positioning your argument? How are you getting across your story to your readers? So without further ado, let me share my screen and we'll get straight into it. Okay. Hopefully, if you're ProWritingAid users already, you'll be familiar with this screen. So this is our web editor. You can access this just through the website and log in, go to Use App or click on your name and you can get to this screen. And this shows what the UI, what the ProWritingAid UI looks like. And we try to replicate this UI wherever you're using ProWritingAid. So it's got a degree of familiarity to it. But you can see from the off, we've got a bunch of settings right here where we can set our language, what variation of English we're using, and we can set our document type. Okay, so what is it I'm writing? I'm writing a business document, and here I'm writing a general email. Okay, so we see what it's like in the web editor. Let's dive straight over to the Chrome extension. The reason I'm showing you the Chrome extension, quite simply, it's the most popular integration we have. It's where most people get the most value from ProWritingAid, because it integrates, as with all of our browser extensions, it's working for you in the web apps and the websites where you are doing your work. So I use Gmail. I have the Chrome extension turned on. You can see it up here. If I open that and if I enable it, it will automatically be enabled. I've just turned it off so that I can show you what happens when I turn it on. Again, I can set my language, so which variation of English. I'm using UK English. I'm based in the UK. And I'm doing business writing. So I'm going to set the business writing there. And you can see the document's already populated with a bunch of underlines, right? So it's getting to work. Like I said, it's the editor, it's the second pair of digital eyes. While you write, it's constantly reviewing your writing. So as you write, it will add more and more highlights as it finds more and more, not just mistakes, because the degree of writing is subjective, right? So there are things in here that aren't necessarily mistakes, but are possible improvements to do with readability, to do with style. And as I hover over any of them, you'll see the message appear telling me what the possible improvement is. Okay, so that's what we call our real-time checker. Just looking for things in real time. Now, at that level, it's really useful. But if I go down to this little icon here, this little target icon, and open ProWriting, it will actually open what we call the goals and improvements sidebar. So here, I can start to look at a summary of my scores and a summary of the improvements in the entire document. Okay. Once again, I can set my document type. So I can do that from within the tool. And we'll have a look at how that plays out in the actual analysis that it does. And I can also filter. So it's just checking again. It's just doing another sweep. I can also filter on what I want it to look for. At this level, with the real-time checker, it's looking for spelling, grammar, style, and passive voice issues. The deprecated items, that's to do with my term base. And there are some things I'll talk through about that in a minute. But really, spelling, grammar, style, and passive voice are the most important things here. And I can select those. So I'm just focusing on one or two elements at a time. For the purpose of this demonstration, let's keep them all open. Let's keep them all turned on. And let's get into the actual interesting stuff. So what we want to do is we want to make a change. We want to implement some of these changes that it's recommending. I can either do that by navigating down through the document itself. So I can literally simply just skip from one highlight to another, or I can do that in this sidebar. So as I make a change, and I can do that by clicking anywhere in this teal area, if I click on this arrow, it'll automatically move me to the next suggestion, and it'll move on. Okay, so it's now brought me to the next point. Now, I prefer personally to navigate down through the document itself. So I tend to just click from one to another. You'll notice as we get on to some others, there are some other options, some other actions we can do here as well. So I've got a missing determiner. I'm missing the word the. Let's make that change. Let's just move this over to the other side out of the way. Okay, this is a deprecated term. So this is something I've got actually installed for a particular client within their term base. This isn't a standard ProWritingAid rule, it's a custom rule. So here we're going to ignore this. This is just in my settings. We're going to ignore this. And we'll move on to the next one. Okay, and I've got a superfluous use of the word although. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just navigating my way down through the document and making changes as we go. You'll also see that when I get to some of these issues, let's pick up a good example. So here we've got an example of the passive voice. Now, what's the passive voice? The passive voice is one of the scourges of business writing. The passive voice is where essentially we change the order of the subject and the object in a sentence. So as a reader, we generally expect our sentences to be written subject, verb, object. Okay, so let's say, I ate cake, subject, verb, object. If I reverse it and put the object at the beginning, I have to then create an agent. So I say cake was eaten by me. Now, in business writing, we tend to overuse the passive voice. There's nothing wrong with the passive voice grammatically, but we tend to overuse it. And when we use it too much, it dulls down our writing. It makes our writing more complicated. So as a reader, you're putting more barriers in the way of the reader understanding what you've said. There are very good reasons for using the passive voice. If you don't have a subject to the sentence, or you don't want to attribute responsibility for something to somebody. However, we say use it with caution. Now, why am I highlighting this? Because if you look in the tool itself at this little information icon and click on that, it opens our contextual learning window. And here it's going to start teaching you about that particular grammar, style, spelling point, whatever. So it's an explanation about the difference, well, what the passive voice is, the difference between the passive voice and the active voice, and how you can translate a passive sentence into an active sentence. You can see there's also a video embedded here. So if I was to play that video, yeah, it features some Jackie Chan quotes that help us explain the difference between the passive and the active voice. So we're trying to keep it, the idea is that we help our users, we help all of you build your skills and capabilities for the long term. This isn't just a sticking plaster. This is helping you understand and build those skills in the long term.
Ultimately, it's about teaching you to be a better writer, so you have to rely on the tool less and less, hopefully.
Absolutely. Now, in fact, let's pick this sentence. Before I get any further, I'm going to pick this sentence. See, thus far, the proposition has been accepted by the majority of our stakeholders. Let's just pick up a couple of highlights here. So, okay, readability. Remove thus far. You don't need thus far. It's totally superfluous. Just get rid of it. You're wasting your reader's brain space. So let's remove it. The majority. Well, it's easier to say most. So let's change that to most. Now, let's just get rid of that a second. Now you'll see it's highlighting other words in this sentence. It's recognized that by saying most, we're missing of. Let's make that change. Okay, and now it's highlighting that that's passive. So it's constantly evaluating what you're doing. As you make one change, it may be that you're introducing another issue. So it's going to constantly make those changes. And here we've got that good old passive voice issue. And you can see the AI is actually trying to work out the context of the sentence and suggest a couple of different active alternatives. So there will be times when the suggestions are multiple. Here, it's got most of our stakeholders has accepted the proposition. Obviously, there's a grammatical issue there. Most of our stakeholders have accepted the proposition. That's the one. So let's select that and we're done. So we simply move down the document like that, making change after change after change, and slowly improving the quality of the document. How far are we improving the quality of the document? Well, that's what goals is all about. So click on goals. And goals presents a bunch of scores, a bunch of metrics to do with that particular document type. So remember we said, well, this is a sales email. So you can see I've got metrics to do with obviously grammar, spelling, and style, but then I get into customer focus, again, to what we call we, you linkers, positivity, question count, all the things that you should be looking for in a sales email. If I change this category, if I actually say, well, actually, I'm not writing an email, I'm actually writing a report. Let's see what it does to the scores. Okay, so no longer is it asking or looking at things like what we call we, you compliance, positivity, question count. It's looking at things like sentence length, style guide compliance, business jargon, readability grade. You'll also see that as I make changes, so you see we're on 41% for grammar, spelling, and style. Let's run through a few of those changes. Okay, so it's already up to 42%. I'm going to ignore that one. 43% now. Okay, so you can see it's constantly, like I said, constantly reevaluating your text. These scores are really important and really useful. We get great feedback from customers about these scores for a couple of reasons. One, as an individual writer, they help you monitor the quality of your writing. So you will, through using ProWritingAid, establish a kind of benchmark in your mind of what your scores typically are in these areas. So every time you come to write an email, report, whatever, you know what you should be aiming for. You'll probably know a little bit about where your weaknesses are as well. So these scores help keep you on track. Now, as a team, we have teams that use these scores as a way of doing quality assurance. So basically saying to their team, hey, don't send that email or don't submit that report for review until you're hitting 80% in grammar, 80% in spelling, whatever. So you can, set arbitrary kind of targets to meet for your team, knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are. But it's a great way of ensuring consistency as well as quality. Okay, so that's all very well and good. We've got a real-time check. We've got a tool working while we're writing. We've got the kind of, it's like I said, the editor on your shoulder. But what we want to do now is get into the detail, the much deeper detail, and the really powerful stuff.
And I do want to tack on that for shorter documents, oftentimes like these one-page emails and things like this, your real-time checker, your goals tool, your improvement sidebar may be enough for you to write out that email. So where the full editor that Tom is about to show us really comes into play is with much longer documents. So if you're dealing with a 10 to 15 page report, if you're dealing with something that's exceptionally important, let's say this email is to a customer that's going to secure you a $20,000 contract. You want to make sure that email is absolutely perfect. That's really where this full editor can shine.
Yeah, really good point, Micah. So we have lots of customer service teams, for example. They're under pressure to produce a lot of or reply to a lot of queries. So the real-time checker for them is where the value is. But like Micah says, if you're working on a big, important, bid, pitch, proposal, whatever, or report, you might want to go into more detail. So to do that, we can open the full editor just by clicking on the button there. And that's going to open the screen that looks exactly the same as, remember, the UI in the web editor that I showed you. It's going to be exactly the same and give you the full functionality from there as well. So you can see already the reports across the top, but all of these will be somewhat familiar to you from the web editor. And anything you do, any changes you make, see there's an apply changes button. So once you make those changes and click apply changes, it's then going to apply them back into the original document. Now, this is the point to kind of warn you. Don't try and run every single one of these reports. There are 20 reports in total, okay? You run 20 reports after having finished your own document, you're going to be trebling the time you took to write that document probably. So don't do that. That's not the intention. The intention is that through our help today and through using ProWritingAid, you become familiar with where the most value is for you, which reports are most useful, which reports deliver the greatest improvements and the greatest impact, and run those reports. They become your choice reports. Typically, most users, I'd say, use between 2 and 4 reports at the end of most of the documents they create.
Our business writers, you guys are amazingly consistent pretty much across the board. We have about 7 reports total that across our spectrum of users, you guys use regularly. So that's where we kind of come up with the ones for these 101 sessions to jump into, because very often it is that readability report, that sticky sentences report, and that style report that comes up. Echoes is also helpful as well, and overused words are another one that a lot of our business writers will also use. So, but it all starts with the summary report, because that gives you a good handle on where you might need to run some extra reports to get more detail.
Yeah, exactly that. So you can see here our summary report. In fact, let's just move this, take up the whole screen. This is like the full version of goals. So this is looking at all your scores for your document, and it groups them. You've got 3 headline scores. Grammar, style, and spelling will always be at the top because they're so critical. And you can see I've got some work to do because my target for grammar here is 100%, but I'm hitting 46%. Style, 80% is my target. I'm hitting 30%. I've got a lot of work to do in those areas. Below that, I've got the areas where my document's on target. So those metrics are all in green. That's on target. Sentence length, great. Readability, good. Sentence variety, okay, actually that's above target. So that's a positive as well. And then I've got the areas where my document needs more work. So we know grammar, style, and spelling are in there, but also business jargon and glue index. So we'll have a look at glue index in a minute. Now, this report, the summary report, is really detailed. Again, don't try and digest the whole thing, but do use some of the information in here. Interested about readability? Click on it. It'll take you to the part of the report about readability. We use a lot of really simple illustrations or graphics just to highlight the point. So here you can see that although I'm on target with readability, so I'm hitting grade 8, I should be aiming for 10 or lower. I've still got, at a paragraph level, 5% maybe of my paragraphs are very difficult to read paragraphs. So there's a reason to run the readability report, okay? And there's the added information in the summary report. So Again, familiarize yourself with summary report. There's a wealth of information. Not all of it will be relevant to you and your particular needs, but there will certainly be some really interesting and useful stuff in there. And you can, sorry, I don't actually necessarily want to do that. I'm just going to go back in. You can, navigate straight to the section that you want by clicking here in the sidebar. That's a new addition.
And ultimately, remember, this does come back to your use case. If you're very commonly using the real-time checker, oftentimes goals will go hand in hand and serve a lot of this function with the summary report. But let's say, again, you've got a long document, or you've got a document that you wrote a while back and you need to come back and edit. Sometimes it's far more useful to pop over here to the summary report, because that summary report will give you an overview of everywhere that your document needs work all in one place. So instead of having to kind of scroll back and forth through the goals toolbar, you can sit here and say, okay, I need to work on reports X, Y, and Z instead. So very useful if you're coming back to edit old writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've already built a kind of an idea, if you like, of some of the reports we need to run. Style, grammar. Let's start with style, in fact. So let's get straight in there. Now, style is going to build on some of the information we saw highlighted in the real-time report. It's going to categorize it into readability enhancements, passives we've covered, also hidden verbs, style improvements related to your style guide, things like slung subordinate clauses. So there's a lot here that's relevant. As I click on this little caret, it'll open up the full list, and I can navigate to any of these items by clicking this arrow here. Okay, it's going to take me to the point in the document, make the suggestion, just like we did last time. I can accept the suggestion, I can ignore the suggestion. Watch out for this disable. Okay, disabling a rule is permanent. If you want to re-enable a rule, you'll have to come back to our support team to do that. So I would be careful about using disable. Use ignore and it will remember it. But in this case, I want to make that change. So I'm just going to accept it again and move my way down through the document. Now, so this report, like many of the reports, allows you to make the changes in the document itself. It's going to recommend the changes because it understands the context and it understands the mistake and can highlight the issues for you. Where we get into other reports, and we'll use readability as an example. Let's run that right now. It's doing a slightly different job. Okay, when it's looking at an entire paragraph, there are thousands of ways you could rewrite a paragraph. So with readability, what it's looking at is providing advice. It's giving you some scores. Okay, here are my readability scores. So I know Flesch-Kincaid, which is probably the one that most people understand the best, 7.8, I'm on target. I've also got my Flesch reading ease score. And then here, I've got a highlight of that very difficult to read paragraph. And that's what I want to go to see. Now, it's not going to write that paragraph for me. Let's just navigate to that. I'm not sure why that's not actually picking. Oh, I think. Okay, so it's not actually going to rewrite this paragraph for me. It's up to me as the reader, as the writer, to make the changes. And with readability, what you're looking at really is sentence length and average number of syllables per word, so complexity of words, vocabulary. So to improve your readability, break down those long sentences into 2 or more short sentences and pick out those really long, complex words and ask yourself, is there a simpler alternative? Okay, now we're not talking about dumbing down. We're talking about making things easier for your reader to understand. That's what readability is all about. So make the changes. Sorry, go on, Micah.
Also, keeping in mind with readability that there are going to be certain documents, perhaps if you're a technical writer, or you're someone that's doing writing in, say, the science field or something like that, there is a certain amount of jargon that is going to go into that can't be replaced with simpler terms. You know, chemical names are going to be chemical names, element names are going to be element names. So you may find on occasion that some things are being flagged as slightly difficult to read or difficult to read. And you're looking at it going, well, I understand this perfectly. Keep in mind who your audience is. If you're writing to a bunch of scientists that know all of these chemical names, they know all of these element names, then that's going to be stuff that is in their wheelhouse and they'll understand it quite easily. But if you're trying to explain some of these concepts to the average person, it might be worth looking at those paragraphs and going, okay, are there any other things that I can substitute to make this a little easier because my audience doesn't have a lot of this background knowledge that I may have?
Yeah, as they say, jargon itself is not the bogeyman. Okay, it may be wholly appropriate depending on your audience, but like Micah says, it all comes down to who you're writing for, and that should be the point you start all your business writing. Who is my reader? What do they know about the subject? What don't they know about the subject? What's of interest to them? All those kind of things that make you think in the mind of your reader. Put yourself in the shoes of your reader. Okay, so we've covered readability. You get the sense that obviously I can make some changes. Now, I could even use the style and grammar report to look in depth at this particular paragraph and make some of those suggestions. There are some other reports I can use to do that too. Now, I know, Mike, you mentioned a couple we're going to do. I think we'll jump in. I'm just going to pick up on all repeats. It does sometimes, it's a complex report, but it's one of my favorites because it picks up the things that the human eye often misses, and that's repetition. And we as humans tend to use quite narrow vocabulary. So this really helps highlight where you're being repetitive, and therefore where your reader is likely to start falling asleep. So I can see here that I'm using words like team 6 times. I'm using words like can, ProWritingAid 5 times. Then it gets really interesting in, okay, what are my multi-word phrases? Now, if you get into a detailed report, you'll see this pick up things like 6 or 7 word phrases that you're using over and over again. And I guarantee you will not have realized you were using them. But
And
your
because it
reader
is
will. Sorry,
And
Mike.
it's because it's very much, we tend to write the way that we speak. And think about the crutch words and the filler words that we all use on a daily basis. These are kind of like the written version of or like. So think of them that way. And finding these repeats can help see, okay, maybe I've used this one too many times. Is there a way that I can kind of reword that to make it just slightly different, even if that's just finding a synonym for a word or two?
And by rewording, if you start clicking on these and scrolling through them, you'll see that ProWritingAid will suggest some alternatives. Now, they might not be a perfect fit, but you'll probably find 1 or 2 in there that are like, oh yeah, okay, that helps me bring some variety to what I'm writing, helps keep the reader awake, and may even be a better use, a better word, a better synonym to use. So I really like the all repeats report. It also brings me on to one of my other favorite tools within ProWritingAid, and that's our word explorer. If I just pick up a word, let's say the word handle, double click on it, and it opens the word explorer, which automatically starts searching for synonyms or suggesting synonyms for the word. I can even click and open the full word explorer, which is going to do a deep dive on that particular word. So here it's just giving me a dictionary definition of handle as a noun, as a verb. It's got a reverse dictionary. It even gives me kind of collocations, rhymes, spelling, a whole lot more.
And if you're not familiar with a colocation dictionary, that is simply phrases that tend to be used around this word. So if you had the word fire, you might have the word wood pop up. You might have the word, goodness gracious, starter pop up. You might have a variety of words that are usually found within the vicinity of that word that come up. So the collocations dictionary oftentimes can be great if you have a word that you know is associated with the one that you have in your mind, but you have a tip of your tongue moment. You're sitting there going, I can remember that it's associated with this word, but I can't quite think of the word I'm looking for. Sometimes taking a cruise through the collocation dictionary or the synonym thesaurus can help immensely.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Okay, so let's go out of the word explorer and we're going to just, no, I don't want to leave, stay in editor. There we go. We're going to have a quick look at, I think we'll do one more report, which is we're going to touch on sticky sentences. Sticky sentences is another favorite of mine. It's totally unique to ProWritingAid. Okay, it's unique. What sticky sentences is doing is looking for sentences that are going to slow down your reader. Specifically, it's looking for what we call glue words. Glue words are the 200 most commonly used words in the English language. So they're your prepositions, your articles, and so on, that glue together the working words of a sentence. So on their own, they don't actually do much. In fact, our research shows that if a sentence is made up of more than 40% glue words, it's what we call sticky, because it really does slow your reader down. And the chances are you could say the same thing using far fewer words. So let's have a look at a sticky sentences. So here we've got 2 sticky sentences and 6 semi-sticky sentences. Sticky sentences themselves, that's where you've got more than 40% of the words are glue words. The semi-sticky sentence, you're talking about 20% of the words are glue words. If I click here, it'll highlight the particular word, the sentence. And the first thing you notice is there may be nothing grammatically wrong with this sentence. Again, this isn't about what's right and what's wrong. It's about how you transfer that information from the page to your reader's brain as quickly, as frictionless, as pain-free as possible. So here are those glue words in the sentence. Just, wanted to, back, about, the, around, and last. On their own, we can't tell what the sentence is asking. So we know if we can remove some of those, change the sentence, pare it down, we can probably say more with less. But it's up to me to do that. So here, I might just think, okay, rather than just wanting to circle back about the project we talked about last month, I might just say, I don't know, let's say just getting in touch about the project. Okay, I've lost none of the meaning, right? But I'm saying it in far fewer words. I'm saving my reader time and effort.
And keep in mind that also rewording these sticky sentences, essentially, if you gave 100 different people the same sticky sentence, you'd probably get it reworded in 100 different ways. So this is truly not about there's a right or a wrong way to do it. It's simply what makes the most sense to you in order to make those sentences less sticky.
That exactly, and it's just like the readability report in that regard. So we don't use the AI can't, it can't analyze the context to the degree that it will create the perfect alternative sentence. There are too many variations. So yeah, it's really, this is up to you. You've got the best knowledge of the context, right? So that's sticky sentences. We've done all repeats. We've done style. We've done readability. I think that is most of the ones we're going to touch on. Now, as I said, oh, sorry, Michael, was there any others we wanted to do?
No, I think we've hit them all. And guys, if you have any questions on any of these reports, please feel free to go ahead and throw them in the Q&A. We've got a little bit of time, so we might want to move on to style guides. And guys, if you just come up with any questions, we'll make sure to go ahead and hit on those rather than maybe exploring the snippets tool or something like that.
Okay, so I'm just going to click on apply changes, just like I said, to reintroduce those points all back into that original document. And then from here, we'll go into have a look at style guides. I'm going to come away from this screen and go into style guides. Now, style guides are in the web or in the online editing tool. You can navigate them. So once you're logged in, you click on this little hamburger menu and go to style guides here. And this is what it's going to look like. This is my personal style guide. So these are rules that I have created for my own documents. If you're in a team, if you have a team license, you will also be able to create rules for your team, which means those within your team will also automatically benefit from the custom rules you create. A quick scan down here will show you that some of these look really simple, others are really complex. This is a really powerful tool, and we're here to help enterprise teams get the most out of style guides. So we've got an NLP team that are great at building these rules and automating style guides for customers. Let's take a look at a couple, okay? So we'll start with the really obvious, really easy one. So University of Pennsylvania, brand name is University of Pennsylvania. It's not Pennsylvania University. However, most of the staff, most of the students use Pennsylvania University. So they said, well, how can we stop that from happening? And this is a simple find and replace, right? We create a wrong sentence, so a sample wrong sentence. She graduated from Pennsylvania University. We create a match, Pennsylvania University. That is the term that we want the computer to look for. And then we create the replacement. That's University of Pennsylvania. And we create a message. Okay, once we've done that, that's kind of it. Let me just copy that particular sentence, go into our sample document. Let's make some space up here just for the sake of the demonstration. Yes, there we go. Add it in, turn the real-time checker on, doing its thing. And there is the rule that I created. Okay, so it's really simple, but really powerful, building custom rules in this way. Let's have a look at a couple of, or let's have a look at one more complex example. I think we've got
Perhaps,
time.
Tom, we take a look at maybe the Oxford comma.
Oh, you want to go really complex? Fine.
I think it's a good way for people to explore tokenization, parts of speech, all that good fun stuff.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. So the Oxford comma, love it or hate it, agree with it or disagree with it. Lots of organizations have a rule about the Oxford comma and whether you should use it or not. How do you define a rule to tell a computer to look for a missing Oxford comma? Well, the way to do that is to use what's called POS tags, parts of speech tags. So they're linguistic terms for parts of speech. Now, we create a string. So again, I've written a sample wrong sentence. You can see I've got a missing Oxford comma, if we to use one, right here before the and. How do we create a match for the computer to recognize? So we use POS tags. What we're doing here is using the brackets to see, here are some variables to look for. So in the first set of brackets, we are telling the computer to look for a noun, could be a singular or a plural noun, that's NN and NNS, one is singular, one is plural noun, a verb or a gerund. So if you've got a noun, verb or gerund, followed by a comma, see the comma there? Followed by another noun, verb or gerund, followed by a coordinating conjunction. No brackets there because there's only one option, it has to be there. Okay. Followed by a possible determiner or verb. So the tilde here is doing the job to tell it this is possible. If it's not there, still match. If it is there, include it in the match. And then finally, the final singular plural noun, verb or gerund. And what we do in the style guide generator is we tokenize this match. So every word in this string becomes a number, becomes a token, starting at 0. Tokenization doesn't begin at 1, it begins at 0. So when we create the replacement string, we, in this instance, are telling the computer we want to completely replace the whole string. So token 0 is word number 1, token 1 is word number 2, and so on. But we want to introduce this comma right before the coordinating conjunction, so right before and. So we're introducing another element into this string. Simple message. And then again, we can just go and test this. Let's just save it, go into our document. Again, create some space, add the sentence, hit return. We've got the real-time checker turned on. Okay, there we go. And in fact, so we do have the rule built into ProWriting in a couple of places. So you see the message is slightly different because it's picking up another version of this rule that we've built. But this is doing exactly the same thing. It's that same string that you've just seen. So this is where lots of teams, particularly comms teams, linguistic teams, get very excited about using ProWritingAid because essentially it's removing that step where you've got to check a document against a physical style guide or an online style guide, and you've got to go from one to the other, looking backwards and forwards. Here, you're simply automating it within ProWritingAid. So you're saving time and you're building consistency.
So this can be incredibly useful for, say, if you're trying to adhere to brand voice guidelines, if you are trying to adhere to, say, company tone guidelines, things like that. All of those little things that are very easy to forget whenever you're writing a document yourself and you're just trying to get an email out. Let's say you're trying to get a communication to customers out. You might not think of all the aspects that might go into brand voice and all of that. So by having that installed in your style guide, you can have those pop up and have those reminders pop up without having to go back and check it either against a physical style guide or a style guide that is in a document, say a PDF or something like that. So it automates that work and makes sure everyone's lives much easier.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think we kind of run through most of the reports. We've run through style guide rules. I think we're probably close to time. So how are we looking for any questions, Micah?
Tom, I think we have covered everything. Guys, for anyone that wants more information on our style guide rules, I have thrown in the chat our guide to simple style guide rules. So that's more along the lines of the University of Pennsylvania replacement that Tom discussed. And then we have our advanced style guide rules that goes into more about tokenization, parts of speech tags, all of that good stuff. Those links will also be in your follow-up email as well. But it looks like we have covered everything for Q&A. Please feel free to throw anything else in if I have you come up with anything while I'm just providing some announcements on our B2B unit. So we just this week launched our first Better Business Writing Workshop, and that was super exciting. We had a great crowd come in, and that was AJ presented on how to write clearly. We're actually going to be skipping December just because that's a holiday month for everybody, and we sincerely all hope that you guys are spending most of December at home with your family and loved ones instead of spending the whole month at work. So we'll be skipping that month and instead having our next workshop in January. If you would like to catch AJ's replay, you can always catch it on our YouTube channel. I'm just going to take a quick moment to pull that up. And then if you'd like a reminder to attend our January workshop or register for our January workshop, because that will likely be up sometime towards the end of December. We're aiming for the second week in January. Then you can just submit your email to the link that I'm putting in now. That's just a simple type form that's going to ask you yes or no, would you like a reminder, and then just ask for your email. You'll get a personal email from me just saying, hey guys, our registration page is up. Please go ahead and register if you'd like to attend the session. It's really going to be a great one. We have Kelly Lamano, who is a contributor to Really Good Emails, and we're going to be discussing all of the great stuff about the mindset when it comes to writing emails. So how do you sit down and put yourself in your reader's shoes? What are the things that you need to be thinking about? And this is going to cover all of those tricky points, like how do I keep an email short enough while making sure that they still have all of the information they need? So we're going to be going through all of that. And Kelly is just fantastic. She is a wonderful marketing copywriter, wonderful email writer. So she knows this stuff up one side and down the other. We're super excited to have her. If you'd like a reminder for that session, again, that is in our type form. And then if you guys want to help us guide what our future workshop topics are going to be, then we also have another type form survey that just let us know, hey, these are the kind of things that I have trouble with writing. This is what I want to see in future workshops. And we will take all of that into account because we are getting a great lineup of experts lined up for next year. So we want this to be guided by what you guys are going to get the most value out of. So we're going to be looking at every single one of those responses and saying, hey, how can we create a workshop around this topic? And then finally, I'm going to post the recording from AJ's page. It may just take me just a moment to get to that. And that is his workshop from Tuesday. It is fantastic if you are constantly needing to write reports. So should be the link there. All right, guys. Well, it doesn't look like we've had any questions pop up in the meantime, so we're going to go ahead and close out the session. Thank you all for attending and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you all. Enjoy and good luck using ProWritingAid.